Hello, and welcome to Hold This Thought, a podcast where I invite you to hold on to thoughts that you might not have had before. Each week, I sit across from a new guest, and we talk life, ideas, and ponder the questions that make us think twice. I hope you enjoy the show. You want to pop them open?
Yeah, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm excited to...
First, I want to give you this, though.
Oh.
I got you that. Thank you so much for, inviting me out here. I just want to give you a little something to...
Dude, I love this.
Show you I appreciated it.
Yeah. I like the beaker. I like the way that looks, and that's really cool. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I had I don't know why, but I felt like I needed to get like my name out there as a brewer, so like I had
dude, thank you.
I had this thought like I could get like a logo and everything, and so I had this guy draw me up a logo, and I was like, that's cool, but it's kind of like kindergarten-y, and then I was like, well, you know what? I'll just get my tattoo artist to kind of like, work some magic on it. So she tightened it up? Yeah, she tightened it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's where we got with it.
I like the, well, let me pull it back up. I'll tell you what I like about it. I like that it is a beaker because you're a chemist, right? Yep. That's your professional background.
Yeah.
So you know all the ins and outs of the molecular chemistry of brewing. I love the foam. It looks like I could drink it off the shirt. It is kind of cartoonish, but it's not in a bad way. It's like it's appetizing. And then I like the mad scientist on the back as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what we were going for, like mad scientist type vibe, like working,
yeah, it's awesome.
Magic on the chemistry. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get into brewing because they like beer. But yours is kind of dual meaning. You got into it because you like beer, but you also like the science behind it. A lot of ways the science behind it from being a chemist.
Yeah. I think it really kind of like I was able to kind of go from 0 to 100 with it, like really easily. Mm-hmm. And, I've always liked beer, and I know, I'm a chemist by trade, so like being able to get into the details of the chemistry behind the beer was like really easy. At least like at first, it gets complicated, but it was really easy for me, I think, to kind of like get started with it and then like hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's cool. You brought us some to try.
I did. Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm excited to try some.
I brought a beer that I brewed a few weeks ago. We had we had a bunch of snow come in, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of like sitting around the house, not doing anything. And I decided, well, I'm just going to brew a beer today since I don't have anything going on. And so I had some ingredients lying around the house and put together a recipe real quick, and I brewed that one.
I love how you say real quick, like it's something that anybody could do. Like, I'll just put it together real quick. To make something like this would take me maybe the better part of a year.
Yeah.
Of course, you have a lot more experience than me. Anyways, continue.
Well, that's kind of, that's one of the reasons why I think, we as in brewers, like tend to keep a lot of this stuff like lying around the house just in case something like this were to pop up and we'd be like
stuck at home.
Yeah. What am I going to do today? I'm just going to put something, together real quick.
And I love the name choice, Snow Day Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Because you brewed it on a snow day and you brew at your house. So when you're stuck at home with a snowpocalypse that hit Georgia, what was it, like 4 to 6 inches of ice and snow?
Yeah.
Within a week?
Yeah.
Two separate events?
Yeah, within a week.
And you're just like, I'm going to brew something special. Oh, I love it, man. Full disclosure, I normally do like a 30-day reset in January from alcohol. Sometimes I'll tag like sugar in there or social media, which this year I did social media. And I actually extended it to 45 days into February. So, and then you had mentioned you might bring something. So I was like, so what I'm saying is it's been 2 months since I've had alcohol. So I'm going to pace myself with this so that I don't fall out of my chair here because I have no resistance to alcohol.
I hope it was worth your weight.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
And thanks for humoring me on the coffee cup thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to really bring home like a brand image here, even if it's nonsensical. That's a lot better than breaking a fast with a Blue Moon or a Miller Lite.
Thanks.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah. It's it's sessionable. It's it's less than 5%, and it's kind of on the hoppier side and more malty than I expected it to be. So it's not much of a pale ale, but it's kind of more of like an amber. Maybe
it does have. I can taste that malt in there.
Yeah.
So tell me, you picked up brewing. What was it in 2020 and during COVID as a hobby? What started that? Where did that come from? How did that become this new venture for you?
Well, it was kind of a crazy time for everybody, right? But I found myself like with my work hours being cut back, and a lot of time to kind of like do things other than work, and couldn't go anywhere, do anything. And so my father-in-law, he makes wine, and I've seen, the carboys out in the garage, and, he's, working with, transferring them into bottles and all this other stuff. And I thought it was kind of neat. And I just happened to have one of these bottles lying around, and I said, well, let me YouTube and Google and figure out like what all do I need if I wanted to just make a batch of beer. And after looking that up, it was like, well, I don't really need like a whole lot more than what I have right now. So I ended up going to the homebrew shop and getting like a couple things, and one of those like recipe kits. So like you can go on Amazon and get like a recipe kit. Like, I want to make a wheat ale on my stovetop kind of deals. And so I did that and tried my first beer on the stovetop in my kitchen. And man, I was pumped after that. I was like, I like after you brew it, you have to wait while it ferments, and then you have to bottle and condition it. And I could not wait, man. As soon as the instructions say wait 2 weeks, as soon as like the hour hit, I was like popping that bottle open. Like I was so excited about it, and it was terrible. It was really, really bad, but it got me hooked because I want to try it again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you put all that work in, you waited 2 weeks to try it, and it was bad. And you're like, oh, but now I want to make it better.
Yeah.
Now I want to make it better.
Yeah.
So I guess that launched the whole thing for you. What was your next beer that you brewed? Or did you immediately start investing in new equipment, or did you continue on the stovetop for a while?
It was, so the first kit that I did, I think it was a Pilsner kit. So it was like, Pilsner's a lager, and this was kind of like a pseudo lager. It was like the Pilsner without the actual lager part. And then I after that, I think I tried an Oktoberfest, and it was like another one of those like, this is a lager beer made without lager yeast, and that one turned out a lot better, really drinkable beer. Not great, but yeah, that was my next one. And then like after those first two brews, I was like, I'm ready to jump in now. Like I'm ready to start investing in this. So that's when I started going to, I invested in software to be able to, create these recipes and play around with recipes. I invested in a membership to the American Homebrewers Association, so I could find like these gold medal winning recipes to go off of, and to figure out what other people are doing to build my own recipes with. And then, after that, I started investing in like equipment, kind of, going from stovetop to, to these big kettles with fermenters and being able to mill my own grain and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of exploded from there. I went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you started on your first couple batches, did you already know the science behind how to brew, or was that something you kind of learned? Because I know your background, as you mentioned before the show, is in chemistry. You are a chemist by trade. So did you kind of already know some of the processes and the molecular components involved in the craft of curating these flavors and just kind of needed that experimenting time, or did you have to learn that as well along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it was, there's a lot of things I think in brewing that don't really translate to my profession really well, but the principles are still the same, right? So like learning about yeast and like that's something that you sort of have to pick up pretty quickly when you want to do this. But there's also other things like water chemistry that like a lot of people who get into brewing just are like, that just makes this little bit of difference. It's not really that important. Well, that was something that I thought was really important. And so, I was able to pick that up pretty quickly because chemistry. So, I think being a chemist definitely helps because there's, the learning curve there's not much more of a learning curve right there. So it's like, learning to measure and learning how to take care of your measuring equipment, learning how to adjust pH, learning how to, what additional salts do you need for your water and, water to grain ratios and, things like that it translates pretty well, like when you really break it down like that. So it was, it definitely helped me out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So since starting, how many, if you had to guess, because I'm sure you've probably lost count, how many unique batches of beer have you brewed? I'm sure it's scaling and varying sizes since that first stovetop brew that tasted so bad.
If I had to guess, I would say maybe 80, I think.
That seems like more of like I know the answer than a guess. 'Cause that's like, it's not like a random number like 83, but it's also not like you didn't choose 75. So
yeah.
You got a thumb on the pulse there.
Yeah, I mean, I checked the other day to see like where my software keeps track of like all the batches that I brew in there, but that was kind of before I started, and that was kind of like excludes a few like experiments that I was doing that I didn't really track. So, it's probably somewhere between 80 and 90. Yeah.
Yeah. In that time, have you brewed something that has become your all-time favorite and since added it to a regular rotation of what you keep on tap, or are you still finding are you still on that journey of like, okay, I haven't found like my favorite yet?
Yeah. I do try to like keep a wide variety of beers, or at least try to brew a wide variety of beers. But like I keep coming back to like German lagers. So like an Oktoberfest, that's usually on draft at my place. I brew like a Munich Dunkel, like once a year. So I just love those maltier, crispier beers. And then like, Mexican lagers. I brew a Mexican lager at least once a year, and that's usually one of my favorites. Yeah.
You mentioned lager a few times in there. I'm curious because I really don't know. What is the difference between a lager and an ale molecularly, or I guess in the brewing process, all the way down to the finish? Most people probably don't know beyond, hey, I like this one over this one. I would be largely in that camp, I think, as far as not knowing the in-depth reason and why they taste different. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah. So it's really all about the yeast. Yeast, there's all different kinds of yeast, different, what we call strains. So it's a living organism, right? And the living organism, what does it want to do? It wants to eat. So lager yeast, which are single cell organisms, they will do better under certain like cooler temperatures than the ale yeast. Beer is broken down into usually like ale or lager categories. So they do well fermenting in cooler temperatures. They tend to ferment a little bit, like you want to keep them fermenting or lagering a little bit longer, so conditioning a little bit more than an ale, and that kind of comes out usually like a little bit of a cleaner, crispier.
I think they all work. I'm notorious for making up words on the fly, so you're in good company.
Yeah, but like that's that's kind of the gist of it. Is like it comes out to a little bit more of a drinkable beer, I think you could say. Even though there are kind of like stronger lagers out there, the Germans have gotten really good at that. The Bocks, those are really strong lagers, on the maltier side. But ales are usually fermented for, they ferment pretty quickly. They ferment in warmer temperatures. Excuse me.
It's okay. We're drinking carbonated beverages. It's gonna have some natural causes associated with it.
But those are really the kind of the bigger differences. I mean, there's lots of different kinds of both. When you talk about ales, you're talking about everything from IPAs to Scottish ales to brown ales to really your basic beers. If it doesn't have like a lager at the end of the name, a lager, Bock, or something like that. So,
do you prefer drinking one over the other? Do you prefer? I know you mentioned you make a lot of lagers. Is that just because you enjoy the brewing process better, or you also enjoy the taste better?
I think I enjoy drinking them more than ales.
Yeah,
typically. Yeah.
And does that extend to ale variations like IPAs and pale ales?
Yeah, I think you could say generally speaking.
Okay.
Like, yeah, that's what I prefer. Generally speaking. I mean, there's some ales out there like you take like a bourbon barrel aged stout, and I'm like all over it. I'll definitely take one of those before I pick up a Corona.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I know it's a huge trend, the bourbon barrel aged stouts, and I have not developed that taste for it. I think it is an acquired taste because something from the ale or whatever it is that resonates and sits in those barrels, it imparts that flavor that's just so sharp in its profile to me. And I know there's a subset of beer drinkers that love that.
Yeah.
Especially in the wintertime or when it's cold outside. I just haven't developed that.
Yeah.
That appreciation for it. It's always like right there in your face for me.
Yeah.
And to me, it just overwhelms the palate of whatever is of value and underlying in the flavor profile. That bourbon barrel flavor always punches to the top and causes me to not enjoy the beer as much. And I like strong beers. I like stouts, especially coffee or chocolate stouts. I really enjoy higher gravity, darker beers, but it's just the bourbon barrel age when it's 10, 12%. I just can't get into it.
Yeah. I think for a lot of, like for me anyways, like when I was first starting to get into like craft beer, like there were some styles that I was like, well, I'm not going to pick up that bottle, but then for me, there was like that one beer, like, I wasn't huge into like dessert stouts. And then I went to a beer festival, and Trim Tab Brewing was out there, slinging beers, and they had their cake stout. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And I drank it, and I'm like, oh man, I could drink a lot of this. So like after you have that one that breaks you and like you want some more of it, you're after that white well again. It's like, you want to find something similar.
I have a story about that. Similar to that. My wife and I discovered I love that.
Sorry, man.
Phone's going off. It's okay. Yeah. I normally leave mine out, but I have it in here.
I'm an old man. I got to remember to take my medicine.
I found a stout that I really love. It's called the Sam Smith Organic Chocolate Stout. It's my all-time favorite beer. If I'm on my deathbed and I can only have one beer to choose from, I'm drinking that one. And I don't know why, but I'll just tell you everything I know about the beer, and maybe the why is buried in the explanation. I like chocolate stouts, especially in the wintertime, but I don't like them to be too heavy because I feel like they just like kind of just sit heavy on the stomach, and the mouthfeel can be very thick. But what I love about this beer is that it's 4.9, 5%, something like that. And it's brewed in England, somewhere up north. I forget the exact city. But it's only imported by bottle to the U.S., at least in the Southeast, everywhere I've looked for it and drinking it. And I don't believe they have any kegs that come over here. And the beer itself is like, it drinks like a lager, even though it is a stout. And it's they use organic ingredients. And I loved it for several years. And then my wife and I went to England in 2023. And not for that, but just, to sightsee and see everything and see London and see some sights and go to Oxford and Cambridge and see the Cotswolds. And I remember when I got there, I'm like, okay, how far is this brewery in the north of England? Well, it's like a 4-hour train ride. So I'm like, I love this beer, but I don't love it that much. So I looked up, they had a Samuel Smith brewery in like a brew pub in not where they brew the beer, but where they have a pub that's dedicated to that specific brand in London. So Joy and I find our way there. I think it was like 30 or 40 minutes from our hotel, but we're like, we can make that journey. That's doable. We can fit that in. So we go, and I'm thinking in my head, man, this is gonna be the first time I get to try Sam Smith Organic Chocolate Stout, my all-time favorite beer, on draft. Well, we get there, and they have the oatmeal stout, they have the lager, they had like a cherry something. They had like 8 different beers on draft, but they did not have the chocolate stout. And
no.
I'm like, no. I came across the ocean for this. Not really for this, but
felt like it in the moment.
It felt like in the moment. It's like, I came all the way over here for this, and you and I know that, well, maybe you don't share the sentiment, but I do. Beer on draft is always way better than a beer in a bottle or a can.
Yeah.
Because you get the fresh CO2 injected into the beverage versus the CO2 that was put into the can or the bottle at a previously packed date.
Right.
Again, not a chemist. I don't know all the details, but if I'm like putting my own consumer sentiment on it, I would say a beer on draft tastes, let's just say that's 100% quality level. And then a beer in a can or a bottle is going to be like somewhere between 85 to 89, sometimes 92% of that quality level.
Yeah.
Depending on the brand and how old it is, and is it a can or a bottle?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I've had the 92% of Sam Smith, my whole life, not my whole life, but, for the past 4 or 5 years. I'm going to finally get the 100% version. And then they didn't have it. So, but I had it in a bottle. Man. I had it in a bottle, and it was good. It was still good.
And but, you're still thinking about it today.
I'm still, 3 years later, I'm still thinking about it. But, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree though. That like having beer like on draft is totally different. And like what I've heard is like it's even more like exponentially like better when it's from the source. Like Heineken. I had a couple of friends that went to Amsterdam, and they went to the Heineken brewery and had Heineken on draft there, and it was a totally different beast, and like so much better. Like a real like really good solid beer, not just like something that like you can find at a frat party or something. Like it was legitimately a great beer. And that's like kind of one of my things too, is like I really want to like have Guinness on draft in the UK. Like that's one of my things. Like I would really love to try that one day. Yeah, we'll see.
I know that's a big bucket list for a lot of people. My wife and I were in Colorado last year on a short, maybe like a weekend long trip. And we were seeing like the sites. We were near Denver. We went to Breckenridge for a couple of days, and we went to Red Rocks just to, see it. It wasn't even a concert we were going to. We just went to the venue. It was really cool. And it turns out the largest brewery by acreage, maybe not processing and all that, but it's on the most amount of land in the U.S. is there in Golden, Colorado, the Coors Brewery. And we're like, let's squeeze it in our schedule. Let's go do a tour.
Yeah.
And so we ended up going and doing a tour, and it was really cool. We got to see the brewery, but they had Coors Light, and Miller Lite was also there on draft. And I learned a lot that day about beer, but I learned that Miller Lite is brewed in between 5 and 7 locations across the U.S., and there's like a number or letter code on each can and bottle that will tell you which brewery it was brewed in. And that brewery that's in Denver, Colorado, brews with the Rocky Mountain water from the streams. That's a huge component of every brew that comes through there. And so the flavor profile is actually different than the beer that's brewed in Tennessee or up in Maryland or wherever they have their other 5 to 7 locations.
Yeah.
There's small differences because of the mineral content in the water.
Yeah.
And the beer was really, really good. On draft, it was at the source, which is why I shared that story. It was really cool to have beer that was brewed in-house. And, if you're a beer fan, you've done a brewery tour at some point in your life. And so you get to see these huge, I don't know the words for them, canisters or,
the big stainless steel fermenters and kettles and all that.
All that. And so that was a cool experience to see that. And, but yeah, back to the main point, beer is a lot better when you have it at the source.
Yeah. I've even this is something that I learned very recently, actually. Budweiser, okay, is brewed. I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's brewed as a pretty strong lager, and then they dilute it down to can it. And you can find at some locations, I forget what they call it, like original Budweiser, where it hasn't been diluted down to, whatever percentage it's at. I don't drink it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But
why would you?
Well,
when you make your own,
and I've heard good things about it, and it's like, I don't want to be that guy that's, I will try anything once, right? And so that's kind of interesting to me, I would love to try something like that and kind of compare it, just like I was, while you were telling me the story about the Coors, I would love to have a can from one location and then a can from that location and kind of compare them and see if, you can find differences in it. That kind of stuff I find fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be cool to have if there's a way you could order 7 different cans of Miller Lite from all these different locations where they brew the product in the U.S. and then try them in a tasting to, it's almost like wine tastings or cigar tastings or coffee tastings. And that's what I love about beer and whiskey. Whiskey has that same, I guess, field as well. I love about beer in particular is that you can try and enjoy a larger quantity of it without it completely derailing your mental facilities.
Yeah.
And like anything that's worthwhile in being made, it has a lot of depth in the variations in which you can create the finished product, ales versus lagers, stouts, porters, everything mixed in. And as someone who brews it yourself, you get the opportunity to experiment with that and create really cool flavors.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself like early on in my brewing journey, I've had to kind of give my wife excuses to let me keep doing this, and one of those was this is how I really feel about it. It's an art, okay? if I'm trying to express myself through this, okay, I need inspiration. So how am I going to get that if I don't drink a lot of beer? Right. And that's true, because you won't find more than like 4 or 6 cans of the same thing in my house. It's, it's all different things, because I'm always out there looking for what's different. What are breweries doing differently for this style? And how if I like that, how can I replicate it?
Yeah. How can you emulate it in your own craft?
Yeah.
It's the same as an art student at university going to an art institute and sitting down and studying the murals on the wall, or a wood craftsman going and apprenticing underneath a master craftsman and learning the ins and outs of building a table or building furniture or building cabinetry. It is obviously the research in brewing beer can lean itself to being a little more fun, because you get to taste and experiment with something that you probably already enjoy consuming. But yeah, it absolutely has its place as a form of craft that takes years to master, and once mastered, creates a product that can't be easily replicated because of the ratios of all the components, like you mentioned, with yeast and water and all. Yeah. So
yeah,
I if I kept going, I'd be talking about something I don't know that much about, but all the components that go into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready to try the next flavor. You brought a couple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have next for us?
Okay. I'm excited about this one.
Okay. Me too.
All right.
This one I want to do a blind tasting on, if you're okay with that. I want to, I won't look at the bottle. I'll sip it, and then I will, with my novice palate, I'll try to determine the flavor and the style of beer. Keep the bottle handy, because I'd like to look at the label that you have on it.
Yeah. Yep. 1 second. Let me get this poured up.
As a segue, I like your pick of coasters. I try to match the pick that the guest chooses, and in the Hogwarts and Harry Potter world, I would identify more with the House of Gryffindor, but I'm happy you chose that one. My wife, we got these actually when we were in England. My wife is a Hufflepuff, and it still has the price on the back in pounds. Instead of a dollar sign with the number, it has the pound with it. In fact, I think we bought these at the studio tour where they filmed a lot of the scenes.
Oh, cool.
We did a little studio tour, which is very cool. I remember they had this huge dragon in the lobby when you walk in.
Yeah.
I mean, huge, like bigger than a house, like just like hanging in this entryway where you walk to begin the exhibit, and thinking, and I've been to Universal where there's a lot of Harry Potter, rides and attractions in Orlando, Florida. And I remember thinking, this is way cooler than any set design they have in Orlando. Of course, you're not doing any rides in the studio tour in London. It was so cool to, just to look up and see that, and then go through the set where they filmed a lot of the scenes, and all that was left intact. So, all right, let's try this.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my goodness. Well, first, it's very good.
This is hard.
It's a lager.
It's a hard one.
Am I right on the first one?
No,
Yes.
you're not. No.
Okay. So I'm not right there. Oh man. I'm going to guess a percentage. Let's just say I get it right if I'm within 0.5 percentage points.
Okay.
That's a little generous. Let's say 0.3. If I'm within 0.3, I get it correct. I'm going to say this is 5.3%.
You're probably in there. Yeah.
You don't know exactly?
No. This is the fun part about this beer.
Okay. Give me a couple more. Let me think of a couple more guesses, and then I'll let you divulge all the information about it to me.
Okay.
It's a little darker, not too dark, like almost a honey caramel color. Let me see it under better light. It really looks like apple cider in its color when I get it under the light. It doesn't taste like apple cider, though. It tastes very good, and it's cold. I love cold beer.
Yeah.
My opinion is that beer should be consumed at 33 degrees. I wish there was a cup that ensured that. The closest that we've gotten, I think, for most consumers is a frozen glass.
Frozen mug. Classic.
Yeah, 33 degrees beer is like premium. There's some bitter. I'm detecting some bitter after. Michael Scott would say afterbirth, but that is not the right term. After notes, aftertaste. One more sip, and then I'll closing thoughts.
Okay.
I am gonna just assert that there's honey in it, and also some hops, which is generic because there's like 1,000 breeds of hops. There's hops, which adds that bitter. There's some honey, perhaps, or maybe you put some candy in it. I'm going to say honey or candy. There's hops in it, which maybe all beer has hops. I really don't know. And then it's 5.3%. That's my final analysis. Take it away.
Okay. So that was a great analysis. Okay. This is.
Let me see the bottle.
Okay. So my son, he loves Lilo and Stitch. So I've named this Experiment 626, which is
from the movie, right?
From the movie.
It's been 15 to 20 years since I've seen it. And I didn't see the newest one because I don't have a kid that's that age yet to watch that with.
Oh, just wait.
But it's vaguely familiar in the recesses of my mind that's part of the movie.
Yeah. So that's where the name came from. But this beer, is from the same wort, which is unfermented beer. It's the same batch as the beer we just had. So this is basically the beer that we just had. I had brewed a bunch of it, and I had some extra left over when I was fixing to put it in the fermenter. Mm-hmm. So I poured off a little bit and into like a bottle.
Okay.
And I had this unknown packet of yeast in my fridge that I'd been hanging on to, and I had no idea what it was. And I poured that in there, and it fermented, and I hopped it with a different hop than the other one. Okay, so it's basically the same beer, just used with a different yeast and a different dry hop.
A dry. That's what it is. You brought again. It's been 2 months since I've had beer or any alcohol, and I can taste that dry hop. It has like that kind of bitter back profile on the back of the tongue after a few seconds.
Yeah.
Dry hops usually have that instead of, correct me if I'm wrong, but normal like hoppy beer, maybe in that 80 to 150 IBUs, IPA is going to be hot, like bitter forward.
For sure.
Where it's like you're getting that on the front of your palate right when you're diving into it. Mm-hmm. Whereas with the dry hop, it almost feels like it hits you in an aftertaste on the back of the palate.
Yeah.
At least that's how it feels for me.
It's like a lingering bitterness.
Yeah.
Like you can,
that's subtle.
Like I haven't had a sip in like maybe a minute, and I can still taste it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's still like it's not like a bad burn, but it's a little bit of a bitterness burn on my tongue. But yeah, and I think this one kind of came out a little bit more subtle than the last one, than the Snow Day Pale Ale. This is the first time I've drunken it, because this is all I made, and this is the first time I popped this cap.
Oh my gosh!
So
it was crispier than the first one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I'm honored that you shared this very limited edition with me.
This is so limited; it will not last.
That gives me some notes.
Yeah.
For what we have to accomplish after the show.
Yeah, I was really excited about this one because I fermented it in a 32 ounce growler, glass growler, And when it was done, I dry hopped it. I didn't even measure the hops. I just threw in what looked good. And then like I poured it into here, added a little bit of corn sugar, and it conditioned in here.
Wow.
So it's been sitting in here for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't remember. Maybe 3 weeks. And yeah, just conditioning. So that was the first time I tried it, and I think it actually turned out.
I love it.
A little bit better than the last one.
Yeah. Do you think you'll recreate a full batch with this modification on this?
There's no way to do it. I have no idea what yeast it was.
Because it was a mystery yeast.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a leftover from that. What'd you call it before?
Wort.
The wort.
Wort. Yeah. So like during your brew day, what you create during the brew day is your wort. It's wort before you pitch yeast. After you pitch yeast, then it ferments, then it's beer. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. I love that you named it after something your kid's passionate about, which is a great segue into your coaching career. You are a coach for your son's football.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said soccer. I don't even like
football.
soccer. I don't even like soccer. I do know why I said soccer. I'm going to segue there I'm going to time it at 27 seconds and check the timestamp later and start. I was talking to someone yesterday. We were talking about live events. I don't like live events. They do. I was talking about an experience at a soccer game where I went for the first time, and I had to stand the whole time because at soccer games in Atlanta for Atlanta United, they stand and cheer the whole game. And in my head, I was like, why are you standing and cheering? Can we not sit and watch the game? I'm paying all this money to go to an event I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
And I have to stand now for 2 hours. Can we not sit and enjoy the game? Anyways, that's why I said soccer, and hopefully that was in under 27 seconds.
Well, yeah.
So you coach football.
I coach football. Yeah, it's been a journey. Absolutely. So I played some football in high school. I was pretty passionate about it. I wasn't really that great, but after E came along, we started him in sports just to see if he liked it. And he played some t-ball and stuff. And then when he hit 6 years old, we signed him up for football. And I know a lot of parents would be like, "That's crazy," but
my dad did the same thing.
Oh, really?
I'm the middle of three. My older brother played football at 6 or 7. I played football at 6 or 7, and my younger brother was in football at 6 or 7.
Yeah, yeah. I loved playing it so much. I was kind of like, I don't know why my parents didn't let. Well, I can tell you why, because I was an overweight nerd at that age. I really probably was not very like football-esque back then. But when I, hit puberty, then it was a different story.
Yeah.
But anyways, so like we started eating football, and he loved it. I mean, absolutely fell in love with it. And
what position does he play?
He plays tight end. Yeah.
The best position.
Yeah.
Longest careers. Well, maybe not compared to kickers, but longest. One of the longest contact forward can.
Oh, absolutely.
If you go pro,
Yeah. And it's funny how some tight ends just tend to
stay in the league until they're 50 years old.
Yeah, stay in the league or retire and then come back when they need another paycheck.
Or another Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, exactly.
How old is he now?
He is 9. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a journey. Like I didn't sign up to start coaching. I kind of like offered myself because I was going to his practices, and I was like, well, I don't know. I just really wanted to get out there, I guess, and and be back in the element, because that was sort of like my element back then, and I was probably like reliving the old days, just like any old fart with a kid. He wants to live vicariously, right, and get back to like when he was like the king of the field or whatever. Mm-hmm. Not that I was like that good, but it was it kind of started like that. And then when it was kind of a rough season, because we were not that good. He did get a lot of playing time, and I thought, well, there's going to be some changes made next season as far as like, the way we handle the the way we handle the team, because I'm going to come in there and I'm going to be part of the decision making and actually like be, come in there planned, right, with a game plan. And so we did that the following season and got a head start on everything. We're going out there and conditioning all the kids and spending extra time with them. Mm-hmm. And I was writing, practice plans and everything. And, things were starting to look good. And man, the season just fell apart. It was terrible.
Was it injuries? I mean, do injuries impact a team at that age?
Not at that age.
Yeah.
Really. Thank goodness. It's hard to see a kid that age, get hurt. But I think a lot of it has to do with, honestly, I just don't feel comfortable telling you like what I think it is, because I don't want to seem like I'm making excuses or anything.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But
there was just some chemistry issues with the team.
There was definitely some issues with the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that'll get tightened up for next season.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the next season will be the 4th season.
Okay.
So,
are you the head coach or you are the assistant coach?
I was a head coach last season.
Okay.
Yeah. Hardest season so far.
You carry more weight.
You carry more weight. They combined the 7U with the 8U team. So we had I think we ended up with 32 consistent players showing up on the team. At that age, it's kind of unheard of. Usually have 20. So there was a lot of young kids, a lot of parents who were not happy about their kids playing up, and a lot of parents, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It doesn't matter what age. A lot of parents are going to think that their kids are the starters in that position, and it shouldn't be any other way. And it was very challenging. It was extremely challenging. And it was not what I expected, because I thought, well, if I'm the head coach, I have control over the decisions, then I can make it better. But it didn't turn out that way. It was hard, because I think about halfway through the season, I ended up thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just going to try to get through this without giving up on these kids, because everything else just kind of didn't seem to matter. I wasn't going to be able to make everybody happy. I wasn't going to be able to give everybody the success that they wanted. And truthfully, the saddest part is I wasn't going to be able to give these kids the success that they had deserved. There's a lot of kids on that team that I had coached since they were 6, and they deserve to see some fruit from all the effort that they're putting in. And I wasn't able to give that to them. And at least that's what I felt like, right? Like, I know, it's not all on me. Being the head coach, it feels like it is. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, when we don't have success, then I'm letting the team down. So I had struggled with that really a lot last year. And that was my big reason why I was, this season I'm not going to head coach the team. And that was a big reason why I made that decision. But I felt like I couldn't give up, totally on those kids, because I know Elif's going to want to play again. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to be on the field, I'm going to want to be on the field. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I can just imagine in that situation, you are having to play a new set of rules in the world of managing parents and the politics that come with that, which, not to make this super political, but is probably a lot similar to how our politicians have to manage special interests from lobbyists, as well as their constituents, as well as their relationships with their colleagues in Congress, as well as their relationship with the head of their parties and maybe key political figures such as the president, judges. There's a network of politics at the macro level, but then you take it down to a micro level of a 9-year-old 8U, 7U football team.
Right.
And you have a very similar ecosystem there where you have opinions of parents. Maybe that parent contributed more to the booster club. You might not have a booster club at that age, but maybe this parents have more weight or sway socially in that ecosystem of the social circle of the group of people. Maybe you have one family that is very wealthy, and so they carry a lot more social weight than another parent or another family. And so I could imagine that you get into it wanting to be a head coach of a football team, wanting to coach your son and coach the other teammates of his in a sport that you love and that they all love. But then you add this political element of managing personalities and opinions, and my son should be starting in this position because I think he's the best, where you as the coach might not identify that same sentiment from your position. And I can just imagine how that changes the whole landscape of what you thought would be coaching a football team, but really you're coaching and managing a lot of opinions.
Well, I think one of the scarier realizations of how accurate I think that comparison is like it's so easy to lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, like I mean nobody wants anything more for their kids than to see them succeed, right? So what does that look like? I mean, it's probably different for a few parents, but most of the time parents just want their kids to win, and they want their kids to be the starter on a winning team. Okay. So when you're not able to make that happen, then they feel like, oh, well, I mean, why are they even out there? They're a 9-year-old kid, right? Like, and the coaches on the team, sometimes they feel like that, right? Sometimes they feel like, oh, I don't even know why I'm out here. This coach isn't listening to me, or I told them we should do it this way and he wants to do it that way. Well, it's not about you. Okay. First of all, right. So like, I mean, if it's so easy to lose sight of the reason why you're out there coaching a football team, how easy would it be to lose sight of why you're out there, going to work every day on Capitol Hill?
And money's involved. A lot of money's involved with that.
Yeah, that's another thing
compared to coaching. Not saying I don't know how much 8-year-old football coaches get paid, but I imagine that I imagine that congressmen and women get paid a lot more.
Yeah.
Not to mention the lunches and dinners that they may or may not go to with lobbyists or representatives from corporations or industries to talk about key issues. And it is interesting how those two worlds parallel at the top and really bottom of an ecosystem, but they have very similar attributes.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm ready to try the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not going to close my eyes for this one. I'm going to keep them open. Unless you're like, this is one you really want to close your eyes on, then I will. Oh, I like the smaller bottle.
Yeah. Smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to read it.
Not going to read it.
I'm not going to read it.
Okay.
I'm not going to close my eyes, but I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to keep it a mystery. I like guessing. There's nothing I enjoy more than making guesses at something I don't know that much about. Save you some. All right. I already like the head on this one. Fun fact, my wife's maiden name is Pianka.
Okay.
Pianka is Polish for beer foam or head. Beer, like the head on top of a beer.
Okay.
Yeah. So the white suds we see in Polish is Pianka.
Okay.
And that's her maiden name.
That's good to know. I did not know that.
Yeah. Now you know a Polish word.
Yeah. That I'm actually glad to learn that. That's how much of a nerd I am.
Yeah.
Pianka.
I guess it is beer related. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess it'd be cooler to know what beer foam is in German because it's more of like a. Are there any famous Polish brew recipes? Probably not compared to German and Belgian and Irish in English.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe you do know. Are there Polish, is Poland known for beer brewing at any capacity?
Poland, maybe not so much as like Belgium, Germany, and, Czech Republic, England, Scotland. But maybe not Poland so much. Yeah. Maybe I haven't researched it very much.
No, but at least now you know the name for beer foam in that language.
Yeah.
All right, this one's darker. It looks like coffee.
Yeah.
Mixed with some syrup.
Don't be, don't let it fool you. It's not very strong.
Okay. Definitely has more malt.
Yeah.
Than number 2.
Yeah.
I love that. The aftertaste. It tastes like I feel like I'm just sitting on a bench, like a picnic table bench at a brewery. It's like maybe October 27th or November 14th. It's kind of chilly. The sun has just set. And I'm playing trivia at a brewery on a Wednesday night. And they just released their new line of like transitional beers into winter, maybe from fall. This is kind of fallish, but it definitely has that like cozy. You're wearing plaid, maybe a sweater. You got a hat on, perhaps. It's a little chilly outside.
Yeah.
It's is it an Oktoberfest?
It's not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's kind of similar.
Don't tell me.
Okay.
Yet. Yeah, tell me yet.
Okay.
Couple more sips. Couple more guesses.
All right.
I wanted to paint a picture for you.
Dude, you are so painting it.
For maybe the one listener listening that made it this far in this episode of ridiculousness.
1 million.
Maybe one day. Oh man, that's my favorite so far.
Yeah.
Is a Marzen the same as an Oktoberfest?
So technically, I think there's a difference.
Okay.
But not much.
Okay.
Like not one that I could tell you. Yeah.
It's not a Marzen.
It's not a Marzen.
Man. Okay. I'm zeroing in it now. I think it's like a Scotch ale.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a Scotch ale.
So-
Because the amber.
Yeah.
Give me a couple more Give me a couple more words to guess, and then you can correct me and edify if I was correct on anything.
Go for it.
So it's a Scotch ale. I can taste the kilt in the beverage as well as the bagpipes. I'm hearing them now that I've had a couple more sips. The bagpipes are ringing.
Yeah.
It's got some nutty flavor, to me at least. That is so good. I'm sad that it was such a small bottle because it's my favorite one. I'm done guessing. I know it's a Scottish ale, red, some malt. Give me the rest.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it, man. Scottish export ale. So on the Scottish ale, I guess, on the different levels,
Okay.
right? It's like on the lower end, right? So it's like around 4%. I think this one's like 4.2. So it's very light, very drinkable, and not as like
Crushable.
Right. So it's very crushable. But it still gives you that malt backbone, so that you get like all the sweetness. It's very like, to me, like, maybe it doesn't hit like chocolate does, but it's like, like marshmallow caramel, maybe. Like it's very like, caramelly, toasty.
Yeah.
Like you get those hints of bread.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I was going for with this beer. Yeah.
Yes. I for some people, and I would consider myself one of them, you taste things, but you don't know what they are until a master of the craft tells you what you're tasting.
Yeah.
And then it's like when they say the word, when you said the word bread, it was like, yes, that is what I'm tasting.
Yeah.
I'm tasting that's that warmth, that mouthfeel of like, what's another adjective that would go with bread? Like, toasted.
Toast,
and
yeah.
just like, it just has that fullness and lack of bitter.
Right. Yeah.
Now, when you have a beer like this that is not bitter tasting, do you still use hops in the brewing process, maybe at a lesser degree, or are they completely removed from it entirely?
So yeah, you would still use hops with this beer, right? Like from a traditional sense, like, sorry.
As is the nature of carbonated beverages.
As is the nature. In a very traditional sense, yeah. If you're going for a Scottish ale, you want hops in it if you're going to call it a Scottish ale, right? But it's just going to be to a very, it's not nearly as much hops as like any of the beers that we've had so far. And maybe some, the bitterness is, can be like exaggerated depending on the type of hop, and also like when you add the hop into the brewing process, right? So like with those other beers that we had that were really hoppy, we had hops added, early in the boiling process, late in the boiling process, and after the fermentation process. So it's a lot of hops in 3 different parts of the brewing process. This one, we just used a little bit of hops early in the boiling process and called it good, right? So you still get like there's a bitterness that's pretty undetectable since we just had those really hoppy beers. Really, and our palates are kind of overloaded, but it's nowhere near as detectable, right?
If you had to like throw an IBU on this, well, let me guess, and then you can correct me.
Okay.
I would put it around maybe in the ballpark of 14 to 23.
I think it's probably somewhere between 10 and 15, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you get to like the 20s, I feel like that's when you start getting into like maybe
hazy IPAs.
Yeah, New England style IPAs that are more like tropical forward and less bitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're still like in the low to mid teens, you can get away with like calling it something besides like, a hoppy beer.
What's an example of a beer that's going to have like 0 to 5? Would it be like a sour or a saison or?
Not a saison. Saisons usually, I think, tend to have, I could be wrong about this, but I think they tend to have like aged hops, which is another very interesting thing to me that I have never experimented with. But I think when you get to like American sours, you can probably, start to think about like, how can I get away with, what can I get away with not adding to it? When you're talking about traditional sour beers, Belgian sours,
probably going to have hops in it.
Berliner Weiss from Germany, like, you're going to want to use traditional ingredients.
Can I just revisit that word? Because I'm pretty sure my whole life I thought it was like a Berliner Weiss.
Yeah.
But you just probably said the correct way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so say it again slowly.
Weiss.
For me.
So
the whole thing, Berliner Weiss.
Berliner Weiss.
So the W is more of a V sound.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Volkswagen.
Yeah, there you go.
Weiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Sehr gut.
Wunderbar, sehr gut. Yes. Ich liebe Deutschland.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you could, I mean, even like some, I think like Irish stouts, something that's supposed to be like over the top roasty sweet, right? You could probably get away with not adding. You could probably, like, a real beer drinker would probably notice like this doesn't have any like, hop backbone or
hop character.
Yeah.
It's almost like the hop adds spine to the beverage.
I think so.
And then you have the yeast and the other additives that go into it that give it the rest of its full-bodied or light-bodied flavor profile.
Yeah. I think, there's different things that, that all these ingredients add something to it, I think, right? The malt, you're talking about, like you were talking about body, right? When I hear body, like I'm thinking about like mouthfeel. Like, is it like when I swish this beer in my mouth, is it thin feeling or is it like thick feeling? Is it syrupy or is it water? And that's like a big component of the malts. That's why, you would choose some malts over others. That's why you would mash at certain temperatures. That's, and then there's like, you're talking about aroma. What's going to give it aroma? Well, if it's a hoppy beer, you're not going to get malty aroma off of it. So what kind of aroma are you looking for? You're going to find it in the hops, right? And then like same thing with yeast. If you're going to do like a traditional German wheat beer, like Hefeweizen, right? What's a Hefeweizen smell like? If I'm looking for clove and banana in that aroma, I'm going to get that from the yeast. So you definitely have to think about what you're trying to get out of the beer you're brewing, and then kind of break it down to, okay, what are the different things that I'm looking for in this beer, and how am I going to get that with the ingredients.
Yeah. I'd just like to make a note here. This beer is now competing for first place spot for Deathbed Beer with Sam Smith Organic Chocolate Stout.
No way.
Way.
You're going to have to come over and you can have it from the source.
Yes, from the source. I've been to your house.
You have, yeah.
Dude, your setup is amazing. You have multiple draft stations in your basement. You have you could probably start charging an entry fee for people to come. Literally, I'm not an expert in England, but I've been to England. And when I walked down your stairs, I felt like I was going into a pub in England with the way you have your decor set up and the coziness vibe. And in England, they don't have a lot of real estate, so they build up. And so there's a lot of like breweries and restaurants that are actually underneath like living establishments and shops in that like basement area. Underneath the buildings there, and when I walked down your stairs, I felt like I was in and I think I told you that day, I felt like I was in like a English or Irish brew pub, and I was like, yeah, you can start charging admission fees, and I would pay it to come. It was great experience.
Yeah, I lucked out because my wife is deathly afraid of my basement, so like I can turn it into whatever I want, right?
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's good, but it's like it's 100%, kind of like who I am. I can just turn it into like whatever I want, right? So like, you walk down there and you'll find, bare wood paneling from the 50s and, swords on top of the shelf and, all these different like posters hanging up that breaks down, all the tasting profiles of beers and different types of yeast and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like stuff that I'm really into and I'll look at.
You combined a brew pub style cozy, there's like a hearth with a fireplace. You combine this entire like brew pub atmosphere with like this science laboratory, because there is elements of like the mad scientist on the walls with like the not really formulas, but it's like it leans that way.
Yeah I like charts and things that kind of like remind me of like different so like I have this one chart of that kind of like breaks down a lot of the beer styles, right? And it breaks it down like per country and lager versus ale, box, what are the different type of box, what are the different type of like German wheat beers. And I like every once in a while, if I'm stuck and I'm looking for like, what's my next thing? Like what's going to be the next one that I want to try to like take on? I'll look at that and find inspiration and be like, you know what, let me research that a little bit, right? Because even though I've brewed between 80 and 90 beers, that we said, like, I haven't brewed everything. And a lot of it kind of intimidates me, like the dry, like the aged hop thing. Mm-hmm. And, Flanders Red and, aged beers is kind of like something that I kind of am thinking about dipping my toes into. But yeah, it's just me. It's like what I want to surround myself with, that makes me feel like comfortable in myself, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your brewing style has evolved since you started. Probably. I mean, maybe your flavor profile that you enjoy tasting has, but even, of course, your skills have evolved. Your acuity and how well you craft it has evolved. I'm curious how you tie that in. You were telling me before the show you have an interest in evolution, and you have some controversial thoughts on that. Coming from brewing beer and really evolving as a chemist in general into brewing process, how do you relate that evolution into your thoughts on evolution as a whole?
Yeah. I think my thoughts on evolution have been established for a while now. And I'm not saying that I have everything figured out. Okay. But I would say there's a big part of aspects of evolution that are, I've got a Charlie horse. Oh my gosh.
Happens to the best of us.
Dude. Oh.
You need a minute?
Yeah, 1 second. That was weird.
It's okay.
All right. Should I just start over?
Whatever you like.
Leave the Charlie horse in. I don't care.
I'll probably leave it in.
Okay.
I said something the other day, rambling, and I was like, I'm going to cut this later, and I didn't cut it.
It's okay. I totally remember where I was.
If you really want me to cut it, I will. But if you're like,
I don't care.
If you like, it'll be funny, then I'll leave it in, and people will hear us talking about whether we should cut it or not.
Like you said, one person will watch us.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that would make it this far into our ramble.
All right. So where was I? Yeah. So I think brewing has lots of. I think it relies heavily on the different. I think it relies heavily on. I would just say selection. Okay, so when you talk about evolution, there's different like sort of aspects of evolution that people want to talk about. Okay, evolution is a broad range of study, right? But when you talk about evolution, a small part of that would be selection. And what we were talking about earlier is a good example of selection. Okay, it's when you take something that already exists, okay, and you want to emphasize a trait, okay, that thing has. You breed that trait in, okay. So like. I think earlier we were talking about the cotton candy grapes. Okay. Yeah. So we were, somebody thought it would be cool, okay, to sell cotton candy flavored grapes. And like when, I don't know how this really happened, but like theoretically, right? If you were a grape farmer, okay, and found a vine of cotton candy grapes, or at least grapes that had a slight cotton candy flavor to it, you were going to try to breed that flavor in. So you were going to crossbreed that grape with another grape that had the same attribute, or at least another grape that would then produce a grape that had the same attribute. Okay. And we did the same thing with dogs. Okay. So like, well, wolves, okay? Somehow, some way, we bred a wolf into a Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Okay. Like someone was like, "Oh, that's a cute little wolf. It's tiny. Let's just."
You can't tell me there wasn't like a rat or like a raccoon somewhere in between, like let's say 4,000 years ago and now, that got like thrown in there to get from the size, because wolves are not like the size of a Great Dane.
No,
wolves are like the size of like a small lion,
right?
Like maybe a teenage age. Or a younger lion.
Yeah,
they're huge. Like a wolf standing up would be taller than how we're sitting right now. Like wolves are huge. So yeah, like your point, you don't get to a Chihuahua without like throwing in something. Think of the mad scientist throwing stuff in the cauldron, just throwing in different potions and different ingredients.
Yeah,
you take that to biology. You don't get a Chihuahua without throwing something like a raccoon.
Yeah,
maybe not a squirrel, but like something smaller, maybe. 2,791 years ago, somebody threw something in there to like I said, dwindle down to this.
Yeah, it's not just one mutation.
Yeah,
it's not just one mutation. Then all of a sudden there was Chihuahuas. It was like, it was breeding. It was like, there was somehow, some way, there was like there was a population of dog that bred, further down towards a Chihuahua, and then it. Probably crossbred with another population that was heading the same way. I don't know. But it took forever, right? Like it didn't take just one generation. It took generations and generations. And then, you have hops. Okay. Hops, we have experimental hops now. And it's great because hop companies are really they're ahead of the game when it comes to new and interesting beer flavors. Okay. They're ahead of everyone doing malt, in my opinion, and ahead of everybody doing yeast out there. All right. You have hop characteristics of like, oranges and, tangerine and all these, different flavors that are really amazing. Well, were those really around back, when we were talking about like Burton IPAs, like back in 1800s, 1700s? Like, no, they weren't there. But somebody found that characteristic of hop made their beer taste or smell a certain way, and they liked it. So they kept breeding it with itself until it finally reached a point where it was like, oh man, this hop is like totally different than when we first started out with it. And and we've bred it to the point where, we've got this resulting, let's just call it, species of hop that has this characteristic that we really love. And I think, yeast is coming on. I think yeast is starting to get there. And yeast is a little bit different though. It's a wild thing. It's a single cell, right? So you're not really taking a single cell and saying, hey, go with this cell and mate, right? It's really more of a discovery type thing. People are discovering new strains of yeast instead of breeding new strains of yeast. I think my view on evolution is kind of.
Would you say it's summarized by a belief that things evolve based on human interaction and creating difference intentionally versus like random generation outcomes, such as the dog example? Human intervened in the situation and expedited a change from wolf to chihuahua versus, we let the smaller animal find the bigger animal and mate over years and years and years. Would that be a way to summarize it, or do you have additional?
No, I have, that's not how I would summarize.
Okay.
I think there is evidence to support that evolution is occurring right now. It's occurring. It has always occurred, and it will occur without us being able to do anything about it. And sometimes it's a within generation thing. But I don't necessarily think that it is something to look at to say, hey, this is something that's real and therefore XYZ. Okay, it's real, but that doesn't necessarily negate the possibility that there was a creation. Okay, I think that's where my big controversial view comes in. Okay, my thought is you can see it happening all around us, and artificial selection is a great starting point, but that doesn't mean that natural selection isn't happening. Natural selection is happening, but also, like you were mentioning, mutation is happening. When mutation happens and there is a survival benefit to the mutation in that gene, then that mutation will get bred more often, and then therefore it occurs more often.
Would you argue that there is more of a design in how things are created, including us as humans, versus it's all random?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
perhaps a creator designed a certain outcome, and within that creation, there is an evolve. For instance, AI didn't exist 100 years ago, and now a world has evolved in which we have AI. Just like, I know it's not related to biology, right? It's more technical. Automobiles didn't exist 200 years ago. We've evolved into having automobiles.
Yeah, I think that's kind of on the track where I'm headed, right? There's I think there is everything is tied together in this world, okay? And, everything I think is everything living, human, or, animals and humans are linked with by DNA. Okay. And that's really where the evolution takes place. Okay. And I think a lot of people are too busy or too focused on that, on the little things, to look at it from a wider scope. Like you were saying, everything is designed in a way. If you look at it in a big, broader sense, like just because, maybe I don't believe that that humans were, that monkeys evolved into humans, okay, in a layman's term, then that doesn't necessarily mean that. Just because I don't think that doesn't mean that I believe evolution isn't real, right? There is a creator, I believe, and I think that there's a omnipotent being that designed it that way. There's just because like the world seems like it may have come from randomness, doesn't mean that there's like it wasn't designed like that, right? I mean, if you really are thinking about it, like why would you not be convinced that something like this could be designed if you're talking about an all-powerful, all-knowledgeable being?
Yeah, that kind of touches on something that I have an interest in, which is I haven't made up my mind in this realm, but I'm very interested in this specific argument, which is that for those that believe in the creationist model, God created the world roughly 6,000 years ago. The specific point of could God not have created a aged world when he built it instead of a fresh, perfectly brand new world? And that would allow for dinosaur bones to exist that are dated, hundreds of millions of years ago from a huge range of periods, prehistoric, Jurassic, the other ones. There's like 4 different ones. Mm-hmm. That would allow that to be real because God created a world that already had age baked into it. And the argument for that a lot of the people in this camp take, who are Christians, most of them, or maybe Judeo-Christian, is that when God created the world, he created trees, not seeds. Mm. He created rivers, not water coming from the sky immediately. So there was age baked in because a tree is not at 0 days, months, or years of life. A tree is at 1, 10, 30, 100 years of life.
Right.
So the argument of God created a world that already has its age baked into it because of the trees and animals. He didn't create infants of animals. He created all living creatures at various ages of life.
Yeah.
That creates this possibility that the earth is actually has age built into it from the day it was created.
Yeah.
And what you were saying reminded me of that theory, and it's something I've been observing for some time and find quite compelling.
That theory is very interesting because it does fit, I think, when you think about it biologically, God created rivers instead of,
water droplets
right
in the sky.
Right. So maybe God created Homo erectus, right? Just put him right there in the ground, right? I mean, maybe, people find that and say, oh my gosh, like the human race is a lot older than we think it is, right? Okay, but, take everything into consideration here when you're making those kind of statements. And I think when you talk about God in the way that we're talking about him, like you can't necessarily put him in a box and say he's capable of this and maybe that or not that, but he's capable of that, then like, yeah, absolutely. Like maybe your theory makes sense. But like when we're talking about it in this sense, it's like, you know, why would you put him in a box and say that he wouldn't do that or he wouldn't be able to do that? And who are we to question his ways?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why he would do something like that, but I'm not God.
Yeah. As an aside, I'm looking forward to trying your fourth and final flavor that you brought.
Yeah, man. Break it out.
Do you have an all-time favorite that you've brewed?
Oh, man. All-time favorite. That's hard, man. I think my Munich Dunkel might be my favorite that I've ever brewed. Yeah.
It is the most palatable bourbon barrel aged I've ever had. I'll say that.
Oh, thank you.
It's not too strong.
Yeah.
What? Well, I was going to ask you, what did you do to make it not as punchy right in your tongue as most bourbon barrel aged? But
yeah, I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't use enough bourbon. That's what it was. This was my first attempt, and I effed up.
No, it's good for me because I don't like that punchy.
Yeah.
It feels like when I drink a bourbon barrel age, it feels like Napoleon Bonaparte is invading my country and seizing ownership of it. And the country is my tongue and my palate and my mouth, my olfactory senses.
Yeah.
And this one feels like maybe less invasion and more colonization.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that verbiage.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably pretty poor analogy, but it's a little friendlier.
Yeah.
While still very forward on the palate. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we've sort of taken this journey from hop overload to malt overload. Yeah, this was a recipe of a imperial stout. Didn't come out too strong, really. It's more like 10% ABV.
I appreciate the 2-ounce pour for that. I needed to be able to walk out of here.
Yeah, it's no Sam Smith's, but
yeah, but still, it is good.
Yeah. So what I did with this one is I brewed it, fermented it, and then I did a secondary fermentation with an oak, a piece of oak that I soaked in Maker's Mark. And then, that was the secondary fermentation. I fermented it with that oak, and then I poured a little bit of that bourbon that was soaking in the oak in there as well. So it's super oaky, but not like crazy bourbony. And I guess it added a little bit more ABV to it, but not like a crazy amount. Not like you would from a brewery that's using like an actual barrel or anything.
Yeah.
But I did that. I brewed this in, I want to say like December. So it's kind of young for a bourbon barrel aged stout, but I bottled it up and I've been tasting it, kind of throughout the process.
Yeah. So. Has the flavor profile changed since you first started tasting it to now in late February? Almost March?
Not much. No. I wouldn't really expect it to until like maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll change in a year or 2 years, 3 years, who knows. Yeah.
How much did you brew of this?
I think I did like 4 gallons of this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've gone through maybe half a gallon at this point?
Yeah, maybe.
In tastings and what you brought today and things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the milder bourbon barrel part. I can still taste it, but it's not as pungent as, like you said, those breweries that will use a whole barrel to really impart that flavor profile, which can be very polarizing in its flavor. I did want to ask you, you've been brewing out of your house, and you'd mentioned that you might want to start a brewery. What would that look like for you? What are some ideas you have for brewery startups?
Yeah. It's evolved so much because I've thought about it for a few years now, and what breweries I feel like would succeed today doesn't look the same as it did, 2 years ago. The industry's changing, and breweries are suffering right now. So, big distribution breweries are not doing well. And I think that's kind of changed my thought or my thoughts on how I would approach it. Right. So a couple of years ago, I had this idea of starting a brewery with, kind of like a theme. Like you walk in and you feel the theme. You walk in and it's like,
it's like a petting zoo, but instead of you petting the animals, they pet you.
They pet you. Yes, exactly.
That's from The Office.
How did you know?
That's from The Office. I had to drop it. Anyways, continue.
So it was kind of like, around my whole branding thing, right? Like the mad scientist, like you walk in and there's like gas lanterns and, beakers hanging from the ceiling and, all these like brass, taps and, scientists, laboratory looking things and, crazy cool lighting, and then like a full menu and, just basically like doing it big. Right. And it was going to be like, we had it all, my wife and I worked on this, right? Like we had it all drawn out, like what things are going to be like decorated as what, we had like a list of beers that we wanted to be on tap. And, we just got like kind of happy with it because the bigger, the better. Right. And, like my view of that has really changed recently. I think you had to be careful now starting a brewery because it's not something that like lasts forever, especially like in our area. It's like we're seeing tons of breweries close in the past couple of years, and it's kind of scary, right? So if you're going to do it, you want to do it right. And so like my idea of that brewery that I like, my dream brewery of opening changed into more of like a neighborhood type, you're walking downtown and you see this little, shop, and you walk in there and it happens to be a little tiny brewery with a bar you can sit at and order a drink and keep it, kind of low profile. That way I'd be able to, to sort of focus on the beer aspect of it and doing what I love without having to worry about, how are we going to make it to next month?
Yeah. The challenge with a big brewery space, I got a little exposure to this in the pickleball world because I looked into that as a business venture. It's a passion of mine, the way brewing is a passion for yours. And the challenge with pickleball is that the cost per square foot is so high because on a pickleball court, you have 4 people playing on a huge geographical footprint. And in a brewery that has this thematic lighting and thematic, everything's themed. You have these huge not kegerators, but these huge tanks taking up a lot of space, and comparing a huge brewing that has all your dream visualization and decor, you're paying more for square foot, but then you could get the same sales revenue from maybe a smaller footprint in that small shop. And it's not a perfect example, brewing to pickleball, analogy, but the point being, the larger your footprint, the more you have to think, how can I generate revenue to support the cost, whether it's a lease or I bought raw land and built something, whatever the circumstances may be, to support your point, you have a larger chance of success when you're starting out to have that smaller space where you can focus on building the beer side and creating a distribution network to help support that long-term goal of perhaps a larger geographic footprint. Anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've even, sort of like thought about it further, it's like what, like if this, like how can I support it even further to the point where, it's like, something that I can start and not have to worry about, how am I going to pay the bills? And it was cool because I stopped in this one brewery when we were in somewhere up in the mountains. I can't remember what town it was, but we were there
in North Georgia.
Yeah, North Georgia, And there was a bike shop. Okay. We stopped in this
motorcycles or like pedestrian bikes, not pedestrian, but
mountain
like
bikes.
Cyclist. Yeah.
And they had this like trail back there where people can go up and ride, but they also had this 1-barrel brewing system, and they sold beer. It was a brewery that they ran out of the back of a bike shop. I mean, there was a ton of people there biking, and I think maybe one other person might be ordering a beer, right? But the point was, they were a bike shop first and a brewery second. And I think they just started brewing beer there because they love to do it. And I'm like, that's kind of like something that I could really relate to. It's like, I just want to brew and not have to worry about the rest, right?
So maybe you could find something that not to take your wife from whatever she's passionate about, but like as a couple, you mentioned you were planning this brewery out with your wife.
Yeah.
Find something that is like easily revenue generating that you and your wife can maybe do on the front end. And then you have the backdoor operation of the brewery. Like, it doesn't have to be a bike shop. It could be selling comic books, or something like that, wherever your target market is and the location you're in, you're going to bring in customers. And then, hey, we also have this extra business on the side, intro, mad scientist, master chemist, brewer. Yeah. And then boom, taste.
Yeah. I think it's a cool idea. And we've sort of like kicked around different things. And one of the big things that I keep coming back to is, what's really becoming popular are these golf simulators, right? I don't know if you play golf, but like, man, I could spend all day on a golf course. I don't play golf a lot, but like I love to do it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that love to go out there and play golf or hit the simulator, Top Golf or whatever, and would just like order a beer while they're hitting balls.
Yeah.
So that's like where I'm at right now, is like kicking around an idea, something similar to that, where it could be like something that brings people in, can be self-sustaining, but is also a brewery as well.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. So where can people find more about you? Where can we learn more about what you're brewing? Keep an eye on when you're opening your next shop.
Yeah.
Your first shop to the public.
I do have a little bit of a social media space. Big Beaker Brewing. That's my brewery name. So find me at Big Beaker Brewing on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Chris, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, man.
I look forward to having more of your beer. I look forward to visiting your shop one day when you open it. And yeah, keep on keeping on.
Appreciate it, man. Love the podcast.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Cool. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified every week when we launch new episodes. I'll see you then.